This is your City Council Roundup, a recap of what's happening at City Hall with John Ongaro. The views expressed in this program are solely of those of the host and not necessarily those of the radio station or its partners.
Last night's City Council meeting had a couple of things that we need to be reminded about. One, optics matters. Two, and so does decorum inside the City Council chambers. And three, don't call out the media unless you want to call out the media. All right. First and foremost, the Friends of Chippewa Park did a deputation last night. Ian Angus, God bless him, and the rest of that group that has done so much work in restoring not only the Carousel, but Chippewa Park to some great updates over the last number of years. They've done an incredible amount of work, all volunteer, $17 million invested. 3 of it, by the way, came from your taxes. Only 3. The rest came from the government. All of that being said, the Carousel, of course, has been the highlight. This is one of only 3 in the world, and they've done an incredible amount of work to restore it and bring it back to life because it is a piece of our history. So now they're looking at putting a building over it to make sure that we can take care of our history. You know, when you invest in things, you should take care of them. It's a good lesson for the rest of City Council when those that were around the table started to question, why are we going to spend money on putting a building around? Because we're going to take care of our investment. So hats off to Mr. Angus and the rest of the Friends of Chippewa Park for your incredible work. They were there last night to say 2 things. 1, we're going to need some help building this building. We don't need a lot. And 2, can you please fix the terrible road that gets into Chippewa Park? Don't know the last time you were at Chippewa Park, but the road leading into the park and then along to Sandy Beach is turning into a bit of a gravel bush road. It is not in the best shape. It hasn't been cared for, and that is the City of Thunder Bay Road, period. Last night, that whole discussion became, well, I don't think we have any money to fix this road. It's going to cost $1.35 million to resurface that road. We don't have that kind of money. But yet Councillor Oliver then put her hand up and said, here's an idea. Why can't we use the MAT tax or find funding outside the budget to pay for fixing up this road? And it's an important part of not only tourism for our community, but an important part of getting people to what is a historic space in the history of Thunder Bay. Why not? And here's a genius idea from Councillor Oliver. Why not talk to Fort William First Nation about a partnership for this? What a great idea. And why was she the first one to say this? And why is she the first one to say this now? Because this is something we should have talked about long ago. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well,
go ahead.
I tuned in yesterday, all for about 45 seconds.
Oh, so you really...
I got a real fair idea of what's happening there. No, but the timing of my tune-in was very interesting. I don't know if you can comment on this. So there was Ian Angus talking, doing the thing about Chippewa, and then Councillor Folds started throwing out some numbers.
Right.
And maybe there was an error in his numbers.
Right.
But then Ian Angus made a comment. I don't know. Does this follow under your decorum you were talking about? Then Ian said, hey, Councillor Folds, that's why you're a science teacher and not a math teacher. And then for a split second, Councillor Folds looked a little agitated at that.
Yep.
And then it went back to Ian Angus. And I was like, that's kind of uncalled for. You don't need to say that, Ian.
To Mr. Angus's defense, Councillor Folds had the numbers wrong. And so what they were asking for and what they needed were 2 very different things. They were kind of talking about 2 different things. What happens, though, the resolution that was amended is that the administration is now sent back to see if there is opportunities to find CEDC and MAT tax money to try to help out the Friends of Chippewa Park. And before you start saying we've given them enough money, again, $17 million invested from the Friends of Chippewa Park, and only $3 million of it over all these years came from your taxes. It's not a lot. $14 million has come from the government, and we'll see what happens next.
And when that we'll see what happened next is happening, what is this deferred to like springtime?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Next, we overspent on a couple of things. The River Street Culvert, Danny's favorite construction topic. Turns out that we were a couple $100,000 over budget because of the extension of that. That was approved. We are also adding another $330,000 to the budget to fix up what wasn't finished for the Balmoral renovations.
Okay. Back to River Street quickly. I was on that section the other day. And when you think about all the work that had happened for those over 500 days, it takes like 1 second to cross that section.
Yes, it does. It's a lot.
And then you think $2.8 million $2.8 million, but I get there's a lot of work there. But it was just like, wow, okay.
Next on the agenda, keep in mind that we just talked about how we don't have enough money, $1.35 million, to resurface Chippewa Park's road. But yet there we were last night talking about, ready for it, kids? Pickleball. That's right, Canada's fastest growing sport. Boulevard Lake's pickleball courts are incredibly busy. I learned something last night. I learned that the Pickleball Club can actually book time on the city's pickleball courts for their own. That means you and I, Danny, if we wanted to go and pick up a quick round of tennis, you and I can't play because the Pickleball Club has that booked. I didn't know you can book public spaces. I learned that last night. So apparently, in the discussions last night around City Council, there is some tension, we can say, in the pickleball world. I know it gets quite dramatic. They're fighting over court time. We have nothing else to worry about. But anyway, it turns out that the pickleball players that book Boulevard Lake sometimes overstay their welcome and don't let other people play. And this causes all kinds of trouble and back and forth and back and forth. So you know what we need? We need to build 3 more outdoor pickleball facilities identical to Boulevard Lake, one of them being at Northwood Playfield.
The demand is high.
The demand is very high, and so pickleball is now the biggest thing that council has to worry about. And tell me, who's got the money to build these courts? Again, this is one of those things that's optics. We don't have $1.3 million to fix a road to Chippewa Park, but we're looking at building outdoor pickleball courts.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the optics thing in just a second. Outdoor rinks reductions came again last night. Comes at a cost savings. They were going to cut $73,000 from the budget to close some of the rinks. Turns out community centers reached out to get grants from the city to provide access to heated change facilities and have people on site. So the unsupervised decision that we made a couple of months ago and closing down or at least lowering the amount of service to some rinks has now been thrown out the window because community centers have reached out to get grants to pay for people to access these buildings and to have them supervised. Those grants come from the city. So the $73,000 in savings is no longer a savings, and now it's back to being an expense. And the fight last night is, how does this fit in the budget? To be completely frank with you, I didn't understand 90% of the conversation because it made no sense to me. I thought we decided to close these things, and I thought we decided to save money, and now we're not. The mayor spoke up and said, if we don't do something about this, it's going to get worse. Again, the point is, you made a decision to save money, and now you're putting them back in. Optics. Speaking of optics, Norm Gale did a great commentary on a report that was given to council last night about capital surpluses. It turns out that over decades, the city has never overspent on capital expenditures. They've always been under. That's a really good thing. And good on city manager Norm Gale for pointing that out. Councillor Trini, you got my attention when you made the comment about the media never celebrates these wins enough. Well, Councillor, on your first year of council, I don't have a lot of things to celebrate. And if we are not hitting our capital expenses and we're actually saving money, I will celebrate that till the cows come home. See points 1 and 2. $1.3 million for a road to Chippewa that we said no to, but we're thinking about pickleball courts. You see where I'm going with that? Finally, a memo from Councillor Agarwal last night put forward to council about spending some money. What does she want to spend money on? Hiring new staff. Even though we're in a situation where the budget is beyond controllable at this point, we're looking at 6% or more next year, unless administration pulls out some kind of fancy magical rabbit out of a hat, you're going to be paying a lot more for your taxes. One of the things that people in town and coffee shops all over the city complain about is how heavy we are with administration. There was a memo from Councillor Agarwal suggesting that we spend $200,000 on 2 new people to work on the temporary housing and the housing situation that we're in. We're about to get a pile of money from the provincial government, and we need people to manage that. So let's hire 2 more people at $200,000. That's a lot of money. This is outside of the budget, but as Councillor Agarwal explained, don't worry about it. We're going to spend the $200,000, but we're just going to get it all back when we get our housing cash back. It's in and it's out, she kept saying. It's in, we'll spend the money, but don't worry, we're going to get it back when we meet all of our housing targets. Councillor Bentz piped up and said, well, if we can afford new staff, what are we going to do about these cuts that we need to still find? Mm-hmm. You remember the $2.1 million that we needed to find for next year just to keep it five. Well, you just added $200,000 to it because after a back and forth about why this is not coming from administration and it's coming from a councillor and why we can't wait 2 months to put it in the budget, your council decided we don't have to wait 2 months. Let's spend the $200,000 on 2 new staff right now.
And that's temporary until 26. Was that the story, or
you tell me?
From what I understand,
who's going to track it? I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's until 26.
Staff expansions in the budget should come from administration. That is a point from Councillor Bentz that I completely support. Administration is the experts on hiring people, not City Council. But a councillor brought forward hiring 2 new people, and this council approved it. $200,000. See points 1, 2, and 4. We don't have $1.3 million for a road. We're going to build a pickleball court for outside, and we're going to spend $200,000 outside of the budget to hire 2 new people. But don't worry about it. We're going to get that back. It's all about optics. And what happened last night was optics. I'm not suggesting that anybody was saying anything dishonest or otherwise. But for the average person like me watching this meeting, we spent money on weird things. We said no to some things, and then we backtracked on others. The optics are confusing. There needs to be some kind of report at the end of council meetings to explain what the heck just happened, because this meeting was over at 9 o'clock last night, and I was scratching my head going, what did we just do? A lot of it is optics, and a lot of it is hard to follow and hard to understand. But this council, once again, although complaining that the media doesn't celebrate wins enough, spent $200,000 outside of the budget because, quote, don't worry, we're going to get it back. We hope. That's the optics we're talking about, and that's what makes it hard to celebrate. Finally, the City Council Round Up Scorecard is back.
Okay.
I'd like to point out that point of clarification is not a thing. It is not a thing. A point of order is a thing, but a point of clarification is made up, and that came up twice last night. Thanks, Councillor Albert Aiello. You're the chair making points of clarification twice that don't exist. Finally, points of clarification 2 on your scorecard, and finally, the final thing on your scorecard. It's been a while, but a councillor's pet was back, and it was at a perfect moment. Mark Bentz's cat decided to walk past his camera full on in the middle of something fairly important, to which Councillor Bentz said he's had enough too.
Well, look at that. You know what? That's the highlight right there, because that's a nice moment during what seems to be, I think, a pretty stressful meeting.
He's a great cat. Councillor Bentz, text us and let us know what the name of the cat is, because he needs to go on the scorecard. That's your City Council Roundup. Pay attention. Another meeting next week.
All right, John, thank you very much. And you'll get that roundup on our website, 999thebay.ca. Also, a link on our new Facebook page, by the way, 999 The Bay. Find it, search for it, and it'll be there. There you go. Thank you, John.
I'm looking forward to the Christmas break. And then guess what? It's budget time.
Oh, we haven't even started.
Have your naps. 8:24. Skinnerd is on the Bay.